My name is Sam Jenks, and welcome to another episode of The Way We Source, a podcast hosted by Kodiak Hub, where we share our talks with procurement practitioners, leaders, experts, consultants, content gurus, and people that we find downright inspiring, diving into the role that sourcing and procurement plays in the way we live. If you like today's episode, as always, make sure to rate the program and give us a follow. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting a true procurement practitioner, a practitioner with a capital P, bringing her extensive knowledge and wealth of experience from over 25 years at businesses such as Kraft, Modelez, and most recently, the Chief Procurement Officer at Campari Group. In 2023, she branched out on her own to empower global procurement teams as the founder and strategic advisor at Brendel Interim. We're excited to have her joining us today to share her experience, Sigrid Brendel. Sigrid, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Sam. Very happy to be here.
And we're super excited to be able to have you. As somebody that's chosen to be in this space of procurement for so long, what is it that, made you first and foremost start your journey in procurement? And also, did the role choose you, or did you choose the role?
Well, I guess that's, as most procurement people, we are chosen by procurement. So actually, I came to the function to bring kids seasonal products like chocolate, Christmas fathers, and Easter bunnies. That's my first role. And then nice. I was lucky enough after half a year to move into the European buying groups, which were newly created in Kraft. And that's how the journey started. And I never left procurement and supply chain.
And I'm sure that it lies pretty, close to your heart that you've been in it for so long. What exactly would you say that procurement and sourcing means to you?
Yeah, actually, I think it's a fantastic place, a great place to be, because you're connecting the dots. Huh? You're bringing the outside in. I love the knowledge about what you need as a company, but also being able to talk to the external world and then bridging those two worlds to make sure that it's for the benefit of the company and not to forget also for the benefit of suppliers who are there to be in the long term and serve us.
Mm. Yeah, it's a great way of putting it. I mean, connecting the dots is so important. And I think that procurement forgets sometimes that they're in that position of power, right? To really be able to be purposeful and make a difference in an organization. I'm curious about, kind of your journey now. You've branched out and now you're in an entrepreneurial role currently, which is an awesome journey to take. As they say, entrepreneurs are some of the craziest people on earth. It's one of the loneliest journeys that you'll take.
I sign up for that.
I'm curious, what is it that made you want to branch out and start the organization at Brendel Interim as you are now?
Yeah. So actually, when I left Campari, I was on a white blank page, and I love that. I have been doing that in the past already, and it gives you an opportunity to think about what you really want and what you really like. And so it's true that entrepreneurs are a little bit lonelier at the beginning because you need to define what you want, and clearly moving from a CPO role where you have a team, where you have collaborators, peers, stakeholders, suppliers, you all of a sudden are on your own. That's not neglectable. But the first thing I did was really to look for mentoring, because I missed the team. So you need, as an entrepreneur, I think you need to be sure that you know what you can and what you need. And so one of the areas I did focus on is how can I rebuild a team spirit, either through networking. I built collaborations, and 1 year is not a lot in entrepreneurship. No. It takes time, so you need to pace yourself. You find your first clients and you work with them. That's actually the part which is pretty the same way. It's the same feeling as before. But all the stuff around is where it makes it intense, but also very valuable. You learn a lot over this year. I learned a lot.
Yeah, and isn't that the kind of one of the greatest parts of life is the ability to be able to learn on a day-to-day basis. I think that's something you said there that resonates well with me, but also I'm sure would resonate with a lot of our listeners is understand what are the white spaces, right? What are the things that you need to rely on partners or network or advisors for, and what are the things that are, in your toolbox? What are the things that you know how to do really well, and what can you bring to the table? I think
Exactly.
that's
And
a great tip for anyone in any
yeah,
walk of life,
yeah, I think it's adaptability as well. I mean, and I have seen it. I spoke to a lot of other people who are in the same kind of path of life, and whether you go back to a corporate world, whether you stay in entrepreneurship, I don't think it's exclusive. You
Mm.
learn competencies, or you reframe them. So it's a learning experience, as you said, as well as it. That's what it makes it. It's the beauty of it.
Absolutely. I'm interested in this adaptability. If we just double click there for a moment, procurement is a very, how do I say, it requires agility if you're going to be in the top tier, right, of procurement teams that are out there. How do you think that like adaptability as a quality and a trait can really help a procurement team? And what's the importance of that?
Yeah, I think adaptability is key. And with adaptability, it's not only agility, because agility can be misread with speed only.
Mm,
Adaptability is understanding your business requirements, understanding where the company wants to go, and
mm,
then building your procurement operating model around it. And that maybe the business priorities are changing, that maybe your surrounding, your stakeholders are changing. Every time you need to re-question, is your operating model fit for purpose or not? So it's not that I'm adaptable one day, but then you have defined your structure. That's it. No, you have to constantly evolve and make sure that your team is evolving with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we talk about in the tech spaces a lot, right? Like we're never losing, we're learning, and like this iterative growth mindset is so important. But it's also, important to remember that same mindset needs to be in all walks of life, especially within procurement as well, right? The Just because you have the template doesn't mean you're done, right?
No,
It means you need to develop upon it for sure.
no.
I would love to get a little bit into your breadth of experience. I mean, you spent 21 years in the Modelez Kraft organization,
Yeah.
which I'm sure was a great period of time in your life. I'm sure that came with a lot of different experiences, a lot of mistakes and learnings and biggest
Mhm.
wins. I'm curious, can you break that time into like 3 or 4 eras?
Yeah, yeah. I think there is something around learning corporate. I mean, when I joined at that time, it was Kraft Jacobsischer. That was my first role after university. Of course, we had internships before, but that's a different story. So you learn really the corporate world. And that's about the first 7 years. I grew in flexible packaging. I had my first remote little teams. So you learn the basics, how to position yourself, and then there is an expansion. I went to the UK for 3 years. I did procurement strategy for Kraft Foods International, and I had the opportunity to look into a variety of places in procurement,
Mm,
create internets, create an academy, a training with some other colleagues, which we actually then also gave to the procurement community. I worked with consultants on SAP BW implementation, so a variety of things. But I felt after 3 years, that was enough. I wanted to lead a team. I wanted to have this creating something,
mm,
but with a team. So I had an opportunity to go back and lead an ingredients team in Europe and Middle East and Africa. And then after another 4 years, I had a chance to move into the headquarter, newly created in Zurich. At that time, I think it was still Kraft or Modelez. I can't remember exactly. But and I took over dairy, and the third one was really team leadership,
mm,
leading through processes, org
mm,
development, how do you adjust, direct dotted line. So it was really the full procurement leadership, but with a team or with a spend which was uh, smaller. so less exposed. And dairy was then the full exposure at European and global level. It was standing the ground with senior management, learning their language, sitting there, margin management with the presidents of the EU, with the presidents of the categories, with the finance directors. So it was everything. Holding your ground, but also making sure that you transfer procurement to the business view. And that was the
What does
key
that
learning.
mean? What does that mean, Sigrid? If you could break that down, what does that
Yeah.
mean?
So in commodities, and at that time I was with, part of the commodity team when I joined the dairy procurement. Um, it's highly volatile. So you have automatically an impact on the P&L. If you think about Philadelphia, milk is
Right.
the main ingredient. So if you are highly volatile, that means you have to understand how to position, what can be done from a procurement function, but also understanding when to price, how to position yourself in this one, what can be done from a supply chain perspective. Holding your ground, you have a view, so you stick to it. You explain scenarios, but you have to take position. You have to give perspective, and that's something I learned. And also to deal with the, let's say, with the emotions which are in the room, because it's never very easy to tell someone that this P&L is heavily impacted. You can shoot the messenger, but actually, as a company, you need to deal with it, and that's what you learn. You don't take it personal. You make something out of it, and that's actually something which was very helpful in my time in Campari when the inflation hit in 2020, 2021. I was able to tell that very, very early in the process what we have to do from a company perspective, or at least suggest, obviously, making clear. So these are key elements of these 4 times when in Mondelez, 21 years, which made me kind of, I had a 360 on procurement and leadership to be able to take on the role of creating an organization in Campari.
Yeah, it's a very exciting journey, and I understand that wealth of experience has served you really well. And I mean, when you transitioned over to Campari as a CPO, I mean, because we've had guests prior speak about the importance of really staying close and remaining close to the pulse of your actual buying. You know, I mean, you've served in operational, tactical, and strategic roles before. I'm just curious, as a CPO, right, when you get to that particular level, how is it that one most efficiently, or a VP, or a head of, how does one most efficiently stay at the pulse and
Yeah.
keep close to the pulse of the actual buying in practice?
Yeah, so when I started in Campari, obviously, as this was creating a global procurement organization, it was a bit easier to stay to the pulse because you had to get
You had to.
hands-on in
Yeah.
to understand. And obviously, I wasn't the only one. I had a team which also quite a few who were coming at the same time. So we actually put our hands in to understand what the business needs. What is it what we should do first, and making sure that you stay on the pulse by remaining curious about how things get done.
Yeah.
And so when you
Sorry to interrupt you. Is there something in particular you did to how would I say, put that curiosity into practice with your team? Can you give an example of
yeah,
something that you would do?
so I think you need to still remain, you have to have conversations with all levels in your organization.
Yeah.
So take every opportunity, either at the coffee corner or when you're traveling. It's not about your direct reports or the managers. It's really about everyone. It's also about people who are maybe not necessarily in procurement, but take the opportunities to engage and make sure that you understand a bit of how things work in real life,
Right.
rather than what you get told. And maybe also sometimes just take the time and be present. So when you have a discussion, ask the 3 whys, ask the standard why is it, and don't let go, but make sure that it's not inquisitive, but it gives you a bit of a feeling, is it really lived? And then maybe also test yourself. I mean, test the indirect procurement tool, or make sure that, and occasionally hop on a program, on a governance meeting, even
Yeah.
if you are not supposed to be there, but just make sure that you stay true to what you think, if there's a need to change.
Yeah, it's so important, right? You have to, you can't forget that, at the core, even if you're leading a team, you once upon a time were a practitioner, and you need to continue to sharpen those skills. So I
Exactly.
agree. You
Yes.
mentioned it a little bit during your time at Campari. I think that we spoke about this prior to the episode. I'm pretty sure your global spend nearly, and revenue nearly doubled. And as I understand, the org had a lot of greenfield when you
Mhm.
started. I mean, you didn't have very much in place. When that is the case, you walk in and you say, okay, there's a lot of white spaces here, right?
Yeah.
Where does one choose to start?
Yeah. We were lucky that we entered a company where we were kind of let go to speak and listen to
Mm,
uh, stakeholders across the globe. And I think that's fundamental. It was a new industry to me. So understanding the dynamics, understanding the company priority, and then focusing on supply chain, what works, what doesn't work, how's rating, and actually that's not only for Campari. That's, I think, in general what you should do: listen and learn, and then start to focus in the first 3 months. At the end of the first 3 months, we had a strategic plan aligned, not fully detailed, but
mm,
making
mm,
sure that you have some quick wins in the first year, and a perspective, because that perspective helps you to engage with more stakeholders over the period of time. So,
mm,
and also it refocuses yourself. You can get lost in much noise, but you want to focus on a few priorities, build your credibility either with finance, with quality, with any other stakeholder you perceive is creating, has the biggest impact for your future, and therefore address those pain points first.
mm.
But
Yeah,
that would be my recommendation, and
that's
that's
a
worked very well for us.
it's a great way to frame it as well, right? You make sure that you always are getting back to those strategic bets that you've put in place, and I think that that's important, like you said, right, to not only focus on the objective at hand, but also to make sure you understand, okay, what are the quick wins, right? So you can still deliver value at a pace that
Yes,
others recognize.
exactly. I think because everyone will come with his or her kind of wish list. And so it's important to understand who is your most critical on the
Mm,
wish list, and uh, and then step by step work on that list, which is also changing over time. But make sure that you get it right at the beginning.
yeah, super important. Good tips. You during your time at Campari, I believe you moved from kind of like operational purchasing. You guys build up a category structure. Am I correct by saying so?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And during that time, was there also a center of excellence that was launched as well?
As well,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
Not exactly at the same time,
No, no,
because that's also a model of resource investment constraints. So you have to start somewhere.
for sure,
And we
for sure.
felt that category management would be a good starting point to actually build expertise, and to actually funnel savings, and also a new way, and not only savings but also helping on innovation, helping on quality, building the stakeholder relationships, really understanding what we need to buy and what is critical. But I think category management without supplier relationship management is only halfway.
Mm,
So I see category management as a way to align internally on what is required, what are your priorities, how do you negotiate a certain category. But then, if you can't translate it in really effective strategic supplier relationship management, I think you miss much of the value category creates, or you will stick to a negotiation rather than opening up to strategic relationship building
yeah,
and
yeah.
more value.
That's an interesting point that I would love to hear your perspective on. I mean, we at Kodiak, we love supplier management, and we are a tool for strategic supplier relationship management. Can I ask you though, as a procurement leader, what does strategic supplier relationship management, really top class strategic supplier relationship management, what does that entail?
Yeah. So I think there are different levels which you need to consider, and also different areas. So there is data, and I think your your source of linking you have identified as Kodiak that data is really important, and grab it. And it's not so easy to have the
Yep.
right data in procurement to actually effectively address all parts of a supplier relationship. So that's number one. The second one is the relationship, and the relationship is something around trust. Is about building something together. So having a joint agenda, knowing where to go and what is important, stay and communicate, have the right relationships in place, and not only between the key account and the buying, the procurement team, but it's also bringing the right people together. So at a planning level, what do you want to do strategically? With whom? And then also, how frequent are you communicating? What are you communicating? How do you do that when things are tough, when times are tough or times are really exciting? That's easier, but you need to prepare the ground for future ups and downs. That's a basic planning stand. Then, from an executional perspective, you always need to be sure that you're aligned with what you need as an organization. And then, from a people perspective, you need to have the right people on that journey to be able to make those step changes in the relationship.
And I mean, people are necessary as well in both of those contexts that you were talking about before. Building up the category structure and the center of excellence. If we just shift back to that, because I wanted to hear a little bit about the center of excellence that you guys built up. There is this kind of era shift, I think, in a lot of ways of kind of procurement moving from generalists to specialists, right? And you said it right. You need the right people, and I mean, to be able to have a center of excellence in place, you do need the right people and the right specialists. What were some of the biggest learnings that you took, but also that you could give forward, maybe some tips to other practitioners that are out there that are in the mindset of thinking about A, building a center of excellence, and or B, maybe sharpening their existing center of excellence?
So I mean, in Campari, that wasn't a huge team. Think about one person, think about 2 people, 3 people max. I mean, that's also the size of the organization, but also I think I think small is beautiful in that case. Because you need, I personally I'm a believer in center of excellence to get things designed. So we talk about supplier quality, about auditing process. You need to discuss that with quality. So you focus it, and it's across all categories. So it makes sure there are harmonizing, simplifying. There are topics like sustainability where you start from center of excellence. But my vision is actually you have to place it in the categories. You have to live it day by day through strategy, operational, and transactional. And so the accountability of the Center of Excellence lies in transferring the skills. Design, transfer, next topic. So I don't believe in that they should stay there and grow in size and bring. So it's a training. I can have a training experience. Should take care of the things which are to be harmonized. But once they're harmonized, I think the accountability should actually switch back to real world procurement. That might be hard because I've seen different ways of doing center of excellence. That's my very personal view, and that's running from my experience. You may find every company is different, and there might be other solutions to it. But from my perspective, it worked, and therefore I So maybe strong believer is too hard, but it worked for me, and and for the team, obviously.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what it's all about, is sharing our experiences,
Yes,
right? And
exactly.
you have a unique experience yourself. What was the three things you said? I love that. Design. The second was kind of train and then
Yes. And then I
and
move the
next.
accountability. Yes,
And
exit. And basically, it's exiting, and that's the
yeah.
difficulty,
Yeah.
because you need to have people who are, and that's why I believe in the smaller one,
Yeah.
because you need to have people who have quite a significant experience to design,
Yeah.
because also a very project management driven,
Yeah.
collaborative, because they shouldn't design in the tower, in the ivory tower. They should really
Mm.
reach out,
Mm.
make the best out of it, and then bring it back. Because if you co-involve, if you cooperate in the design phase, um, there's no such thing of imposing a new way of working. So
Right.
it's also
Right.
about project management skills and collaboration skills, which are very important
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that.
You're putting a lot of requirements on this small
It
team,
is. It
but
is.
but at
Otherwise,
the
it
same
doesn't
time,
work.
but at the same time, it makes a lot of sense, right?
Yes.
It's a SWAT team that's going in and getting
Yeah.
things done, and then moving on to the next project. I love that particular. I love this kind of approach.
Yeah. It's a
That, like you
consulting
said,
approach.
it's not just throwing more bodies into the fire.
No.
It's executing and then moving to the next task, right?
Yes.
And then maybe going back and iterating, but making sure that you're executing, designing, training, and rolling out, and then next, right? Because
Yes.
if there is no next, then does the training and the rollout actually, kind of set its trail within the category at
Mm-hmm.
all, right? Do people take over
Correct.
ownership, right?
Then something might be missing. So this adoption, and that's the critical one,
Yeah.
obviously. Yeah,
Yeah.
you need to as well choose your battles there, and make sure that you're not overwhelming, because this center of excellence comes with a lot of requests at the same time as the requests on operational, tactical, and strategic work in
Yeah.
categories
Yeah.
and at regional or local level. So you need to balance, and they need to be mindful of the extra work taking in, but for the benefit of resolving some of the issues later on down the line. If that's not going to happen, then you have something which is can be very policy driven,
Mm.
but not enough business driven.
Yeah. Yeah. Great insights, and I think an inspiration to others that are out there and looking to get their own kind of center of excellence off the ground. I think the inspiring thing about it is that it doesn't require massive amounts of resources and brand an overhaul of a tech stack. It requires the right people that are going to come in and execute. And yes, those need to be people that are going to be able to lead with vision, but also manage stakeholder expectations and needs and wants, and also lead that project. So again, be a very balanced, operational, tactical, and strategic stakeholder. But again, right, the right people can be able to make that center of excellence. It doesn't start with the tech stack, right? It doesn't start with a need for a massive amount of resources. So awesome insights. I'm curious, because you've been in some organizations where procurement was a priority, and it sounds like you definitely in the organizations you were in made procurement a priority. What would be your tips and tricks, though, to organizations that are out there that are listening in, or practitioners that are out there, leaders that are out there that are hearing this and saying, well, in our org, procurement isn't really a priority, right? Does this change like kind of the way that you lead or recruit, and how is it that you make kind of procurement a priority in an organization?
Mm-hmm. So first of all, I guess you need to understand why it's not a priority.
Mm.
If people don't understand the value of procurement, then for sure it's not a priority, because so then you need to make it. You need to showcase value.
So how do you showcase the value? Let's maybe start there.
It's exactly what the starting point in Campari. You need to understand what are the pain points, and you need to help stakeholders get resolution on some of the major pain points.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
is really listening and acting on it.
Right.
And if you don't have the resources, build a business case around that to make sure that you can present. So it's about the storytelling of why we should be sitting at the table or why we should take the room. Sometimes it's not asking for support, you just do it. And then
Yeah.
some people will cut you off and say, no, that's now, let's focus on this. But I think also to have your word. And I guess also as a leader, you have a responsibility to showcase an end-to-end perspective. So when you're not talking as a procurement person only, but you actually, what I said at the beginning, connect dots or build bridges by listening and seeing what may not be working in a company, you can bring yourself to the table, and that's where you start. So when you're only seen as a saver, as a productivity driver, that's a bit more tough. But you, even there, you can start to question. So can you do it slightly different? So you have to grind. You have to be curious again, maybe resilient, a bit persistent, but for sure visible.
Great insights and great qualities, right? We had Simon Geel on quite some time ago, and he is working at Proxima. And he talked a little bit about the importance of storytelling in procurement, and you hit on it there, right? And it's about that visibility, right? And but also remaining, clear and resilient in the organization, but also bullheaded in your approach and visible and loud and proud about your story. I was listening to a podcast, and I'm going to butcher this potentially, but paraphrasing, it was a leader of a prior SaaS organization saying that he was inspired about storytelling by John Lennon. And John Lennon used to, when writing songs, never write them down, and encouraged the other members of the Beatles to say, "Don't write down the song." Because if you come back the next day and you remember the lyrics, then that's going to be the song that sticks, right? And I know that this is kind of, it's a far line from the Beatles to procurement, but with that being said, what do you think forms a good story for procurement, right? What is the story that you've told in organizations before? Do you have any examples concretely?
Actually, it's we didn't talk about that, but I used imagine in when introducing indirect procurement to the Campari world at their conference, at the convention in front of 250 people. I stood there and I said, "Close your eyes and imagine." So to bring to sit on stage and to say, "Close your eyes" is a bit of a hazard. But I was talking to them, imagine, to our stakeholders, imagine what you could do if we had this and that. So if we would do it differently, what could you do more in your current role? So this was a bit of an entrance. And I think what storytelling is about putting yourself in the shoes of the others and ensuring how can you connect, how can make it visible. Don't talk in your jargon, but how can you translate what you want to say, what
make it real
does, into something which is translatable and understandable in the ears of somebody else who has a different jargon. It doesn't always work, but I think you have to make an effort on telling it in a slightly different way. Sometimes surprising people makes you visible and makes the other person want to know more. And that's also your entrance ticket to what we said before. How do you make yourself a priority is by telling a story maybe differently.
And I think that's so important, that and the simplicity of the storytelling, like you mentioned, is one of the elements that I think that, unfortunately, as a role, procurement and plenty of other, disciplines get wrong. Finance, legal, everybody has their jargons. Everybody has their fancy acronyms, right? I just had to chat GPT for my team, a bunch of different acronyms for new hires to make sure that they know what are procurement people going to be saying in sales meetings, right? If they don't come from the space, because the bottom line is we do use a lot of jargon. We do use a lot of acronyms, but that simplicity and clarity is so important when you're telling your story, to a broader group of individuals, to make sure that they understand and you can make it real. So I'm 100% aligned with that. Being one of the things that I think it's a transition into something I wanted to ask you, because I think that, one of the things maybe of the past is kind of like, procurement as procurement, just being procurement, very focused on that, we do what we do in the way that we want to do it, right? You need to have that stakeholder approach. I think that's a thing of the past. I'm curious, hearing from you though, what are some of the things that you think, tactics or strategies or operational aspects that are in the role of procurement? What do you think are things of the past? But also though, what do you think are things that are, traditional procurement tactics that are things that are here to stay?
I think most of the tactics are here to stay. Because looking at the broader picture of different industries. So when I talk to some of key accounts, which I've done over the last couple of years, especially in the last year, there are some things which surely should go away, and that's dealing at arm's length. That's about opportunistic behavior in inflation and environment. It goes both ways, obviously. But I think these are tactics which are harming relationships. They're not helping. So from a negotiation perspective, I think that's what one needs. You need to have more data-driven knowledge, expertise. You need to be more curious, more innovative, I think, and more agile in terms of adapting, reading outside, connecting to other people in procurement. Like you do with your podcast, more sharing of experiences to be able to maybe not reinvent, but I have heard that could work in our current environment. And certainly you mentioned ChatGPT, there could be a way of using certain preparation work where artificial intelligence plays a role. And so I think you need to be every procurement professional at every level of the organization and even outside should have a view on data, what is important, on artificial intelligence, but don't forget relationships.
No.
Data will bring you so far, but if you're not able to translate that, as we said before, you'll not make it. So in the end, we're still people talking to people.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, you can press the red button, right? That says go, but the bottom line is that you're still the person that's going to have to. They're work tools, right? When it's all said and done, emerging technology, you're still the person that's going to have to put into place. That expertise is still required. So I think that it's so important that we remember that, but also that procurement teams start to have a take and a stance on it as well, because it's equally as important that you do have, good tech stack and good control of the data. This was a incredibly, insightful talk, and I could chat with you, I think, all day, Sigrid, about your experience and your breadth and wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much for joining us and just sharing that with us. I would love to get into our quick fire round, which we do with all of our guests, completely irrelated to anything that we've spoken about during today's podcast, and a little bit more related to maybe, who you are as a person. What are some of the things that you enjoy? You ready to go? It's one word, one question answers of the questions I'm going to ask. All right. Super.
Let's get on with it.
So is there a particular book or a podcast that's like kind of, on your bedside table or something that you revisit continuously?
I have used the, I'm in that case, I'm a little bit Swiss. It's the NZZ podcast, because it gives you a nice way. It's not related to procurement. It's related to the overall economic situation and everything from art to whatever. So
great tip. Cool. And when it comes to your particular day to day, if you were to choose that you were going to go for a swim or go for a run, which would you choose?
Run.
All right. And if you're running, you're running to the airport because you're getting a flight somewhere, all expenses paid. It's a trip that we're treating you to. Where are you heading tomorrow?
To the Himalaya.
Okay.
It's a long way. I know it's not sustainable, but it's one of the dreams. I love
Very
mountains.
exciting. Very exciting. Would you go hiking there or?
Yeah, I'll try to.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be able to chat with us today. If people want to be able to get in touch with you and learn what you're doing at Brendel Interim, or just be able to be a part of your network, what would you suggest they do?
Yeah, connect via LinkedIn. That's the easiest. Have a look at the website, but I think LinkedIn is the easiest
Awesome.
for starting the link. And I'm really happy to be here to share and get in touch. If you disagree with something I have said, get back to me and we have a discussion. I love to learn as well. So
that's what it's
thank
all
you very
about
much.
is being able to talk and understand points of views. And we're so pleased that we were able to understand your point of view today on today's episode of the Way We Source. Thank you so much, Sigrid, for your time.
Thank you, Sam, and the whole team of Kodiak Hub. Thank you very much.
Thank you.